The evening air of New Orleans was thick with the scent of rain and roasted garlic. The streets shimmered under the amber glow of streetlights as cars hissed past on slick asphalt. It was Friday, the kind of night when the city pulsed with music, laughter, and clinking glasses. At the corner of Chartres and Bienville stood a restaurant called Lure, one of the most talked-about dining experiences in Louisiana. It was known for its fusion of Creole soul and modern French cuisine, for the jazz quartet that played on weekends, and for its owner, though most people had no idea who she really was. That night, Ava Brooks walked through the doors of her own restaurant, quietly, deliberately, unseen.
No cámara cruz. No entourage.
Just a woman in jeans, a black hoodie, and a pair of well-worn sneakers, her curly hair tucked under a cap. To anyone watching, she looked like another customer seeking comfort food and a good cocktail. But Ava wasn't there to eat. She was there to listen. Ava had opened Lure 5 years ago, not as a vanity project, but as a dream born from the back kitchens she'd worked in since she was 16. Before the fame, before the culinary awards, before the investors came calling, she'd been a dishwasher who worked double shifts to pay for culinary school. Lure was her promise, that no one who worked under her would ever endure what she had: disrespect, harassment, and silence. But success had distance baked into it. The more Lure grew, the less time she spent in the kitchen. Meetings replaced late nights on the line. Managers handled the staff. And Ava knew on paper that everything looked perfect. Profits were high, reviews stellar. Yet she'd learned long ago that the truth of any restaurant wasn't found in numbers. It was in whispers behind walk-in doors, in tired eyes after a double shift, in what happened when no one was watching. That was why she came back, quietly, without warning, every few months. Tonight, as she entered, the hum of the dinner rush washed over her. Servers moved in fluid patterns between tables, trays balanced high, laughter rippling from one corner to another. The kitchen door swung rhythmically, releasing bursts of heat, garlic, and sizzling shrimp. Everything looked fine, almost too fine. Ava's gaze drifted toward the far end of the dining room where a man in a cream suit stood near the host's stand, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Blake Renard, the general manager she'd hired 2 years ago. His posture was stiff, calculated control radiated off him like static. His smile never reached his eyes. She remembered liking his resume more than his energy when she'd interviewed him. But he'd been competent, efficient, charming in that polished corporate way that impressed investors. Now, watching him, Ava felt something she couldn't quite name, a low hum of unease. She moved toward the bar, nodding politely at the bartender, Kendra, a young woman with locks tied up in a neat bun. "Evenin', ma'am," Kendra greeted with her easy southern warmth. "You dining solo?" Ava smiled faintly. "Just a drink for now. Maybe something light." "Gotcha. Water first, please." Kendra turned away, and that's when Ava heard it, soft, muffled, almost swallowed by the rhythm of the restaurant. Crying. It was faint, coming from somewhere near the corridor that led to the back office and employee lockers. A quiet, restrained sound, the kind that came when someone was trying very hard not to be heard. Ava froze, listening. Most customers wouldn't have noticed it over the music, but she did. She'd heard that kind of sound before, the kind born of exhaustion, frustration, or fear. She set her purse down and stood. As she walked past the kitchen entrance, the scent of seared scallops and buttered corn filled the air. The hallway to the back rooms was dimly lit, lined with stainless steel shelves and boxes of produce. And there, through the narrow gap of a half-open door, she saw movement. A young man in a Lure uniform stood beside the metal counter, speaking quietly to someone seated on a stool. The person sitting had their hands over their face, shoulders trembling. Ava leaned slightly closer. The young man whispered, "You can't let her talk to you like that. You don't owe her anything, Trey." Trey. The crying man looked up, wiping at his face. He was maybe 23, with deep brown skin and short twists flattened under his cap. His eyes were red. His voice broke as he answered, "I don't have a choice, Shayla. She said if I talk back again, she'll fire me. I need this job." Ava's stomach tightened. It wasn't just exhaustion, it was fear. She stepped back quietly, pulse quickening. Her instincts kicked in, the kind that told her when the temperature of a kitchen wasn't just about the food. She returned to the bar and sat, thinking fast. Shayla, the woman who'd been talking to him, stepped out moments later, adjusting her apron and wiping her eyes. She spotted Ava briefly but didn't seem to recognize her. Her hands were shaking slightly as she picked up a tray of drinks. Ava turned her attention to the front again. Blake, the manager, was still watching the floor. But now she noticed something. Whenever a server made a mistake, even small, his jaw tightened. When he crossed the room to whisper to the hostess, her posture stiffened instantly. Something wasn't right here. When Kendra returned with her drink, Ava offered a smile. "You all seem busy tonight." Kendra laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Always busy. Fridays are brutal." "Management treating you okay?" Ava asked lightly. Kendra hesitated, barely half a second, before replying, "Yeah, sure, everything's fine." The same tone Ava had heard from too many people before. She decided to test something. "I used to work in kitchens. Sometimes, fine means awful." Kendra froze for a moment, then forced a laugh. "You're not wrong." She lowered her voice slightly. "Let's just say this place runs tight. Too tight sometimes." "Because of Blake?" That name made Kendra's eyes flick nervously toward the host stand before she leaned in. "He's particular, likes things his way, and you don't want to get on his bad side." Ava sipped her drink slowly, hiding her anger behind calm eyes. "What happens if someone does?" Kendra hesitated again. "Depends who you are." "But Trey." She stopped abruptly, catching herself. "Never mind. I shouldn't say anything." "You already did," Ava said softly. Kendra looked at her, really looked, maybe wondering why the stranger seemed to care. Then she shook her head. "It's not my business." But it was. And it would be soon. Ava's phone buzzed in her pocket. She ignored it. Her attention was on Blake now, who had just leaned close to whisper something to the hostess, a young woman who nodded too quickly, eyes wide. His hand brushed her arm as he passed, lingering just a beat too long. The gesture was small, but Ava saw the flinch it caused. Her pulse slowed to something cold and sharp. She'd seen men like him before, charming on the surface, predators underneath. The kind who weaponized authority, who knew how to stay just inside the lines of deniability. And if Trey's tears were any sign, this wasn't an isolated incident. Ava set her glass down and rose. "Excuse me a moment," she said to Kendra. She slipped toward the server station where Shayla was stacking plates, trying to look busy. "Hey," Ava said gently. "Do you have a pen I could borrow?" Shayla blinked, startled. "Oh yeah, sure." She handed one over. "Thanks," Ava said, then added casually, "Your friend in the back, Trey, right?" He seemed upset. "Is he okay?" Shayla stiffened instantly. "He's fine." Ava tilted her head. "You sure?" For a heartbeat, Shayla didn't answer. Then she lowered her gaze and whispered, "Not really. What's going on?" Shayla's eyes flicked toward Blake. "Just work stuff." Meaning, Shayla said under her breath. "He shouldn't be here alone after closing." but she makes him. She? Marissa, Shayla said bitterly. The assistant manager. Blake's favorite. Ava's mind pieced it together fast. A chain of control. Blake on top, Marissa beneath him enforcing his will, and Trey caught at the bottom, vulnerable. Has anyone said anything to HR? Ava asked. Shayla laughed quietly. Not from humor, but hopelessness. You think HR listens? They're his people. He's been here longer than anyone. Ava's stomach churned. Do me a favor, she said. Tell Trey to stay calm tonight. And if anything happens, text me. Shayla frowned. Text you? I don't. Ava scribbled a number on a napkin and slid it over. Tell him it's a friend. Then she smiled, walked back to the bar, and took a long breath. She wasn't leaving. Not tonight. Because something inside Lure was rotting, and Ava Brooks had just found the smell. The dinner rush at Lure finally eased around midnight. The last customers left with the soft clinking of keys and laughter echoing into the humid New Orleans night. The jazz quartet packed up their instruments. The kitchen lights dimmed to a tired yellow. Ava sat quietly at the far end of the bar, pretending to scroll through her phone. She wasn't here as the owner anymore. She was here as a witness. Every instinct sharpened as she watched Blake stroll through the dining room like a king inspecting his castle. He moved with that same false composure. The easy smile, the too casual touch on a shoulder, the way everyone's body language shifted when he passed. Servers lowered their eyes. The hostess forced a polite grin. Even Kendra, confident and competent as she was, stiffened whenever he approached. Ava's heart clenched. She'd spent years building this place on respect, dignity, and second chances, and here it was, corroded from the inside out. She waited until most of the staff clocked out before slipping quietly toward the back corridor again. The sound of clattering pans and low voices drifted from the kitchen. Blake was in there, his voice smooth and firm, giving last-minute instructions to Marissa, the assistant manager Shayla had mentioned. Marissa was a white woman in her late 20s. Striking, polished, and deliberate. She had that cultivated blend of confidence and insecurity that came from being someone's favorite. Her eyes darted between Blake and the clipboard in her hands. Make sure Trey finishes cleaning the fryers before he leaves, Blake said. He didn't do them right yesterday. Marissa hesitated. He's been here since 10 this morning. Maybe Shayla could.
No, Blake interrupted sharply.
He stays. I'll check before I leave. His tone left no room for argument. Marissa nodded, but her lips tightened. Ava stepped back before they could see her. She waited until Blake exited the kitchen and disappeared into his office before she entered. Trey was bent over a fryer, hands trembling slightly as he scrubbed at the grease. His uniform shirt clung to his back with sweat. Long day? Ava asked gently. He startled, nearly dropping the brush. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, we're closed. It's okay, she said quickly. I'm not a customer. He blinked, uncertain. Your staff. Something like that. She smiled faintly. You look tired. He laughed softly, that hollow kind of laugh people use to hide fear. Always tired. You shouldn't have to be. He looked at her more closely now, eyes narrowing slightly. You talk like you've been in kitchens before. I have, Ava said. Long time ago. I know what it's like when the person in charge makes you afraid to breathe wrong. Trey froze, brush midair. Ava continued quietly. Shayla told me a little. She's worried about you. His throat worked as he swallowed hard. She shouldn't have said anything. He'll fire her if he finds out. He's already gone too far, Ava said. You don't deserve that. Trey's hands tightened on the brush. He don't touch me. Not like that. But he makes me stay late. Makes me redo stuff over and over. Then yells in front of everyone. Said if I quit, he'll tell other places I'm lazy. Said I'd never work again. That's abuse, Ava said simply. Trey's eyes filled again. He says I owe him. Said he hired me 'cause nobody else would take a kid with a record. He won't let me forget it. Ava exhaled slowly, fury building inside her. She'd read his file, knew Trey had done a few months for petty theft when he was 17. She'd hired people like him deliberately, believing in second chances. And this man, this parasite, was using that kindness as a leash. Do you have proof? She asked. Proof? Messages? Emails? Anything? Trey shook his head. He don't write stuff down. Knows better. Okay. Ava thought quickly. Then we make him show his hand. Trey looked up, confused. Who are you? She smiled faintly. Someone who can help. Just trust me tonight. Okay? Before he could respond, Blake's voice called from the hallway. Trey, you finished yet? Trey's face went pale. Ava whispered, keep cleaning. I'll handle him. She turned and stepped out into the corridor just as Blake rounded the corner. His expression changed the instant he saw her. Confusion first, then recognition dawning slowly. Miss Brooks? He said, startled. What are you doing here? Ava folded her arms. Checking on my investment. Blake chuckled, a touch too forced. You could have told me. I'd have rolled out the red carpet. I wanted to see the place as it really runs. His smile wavered slightly. And I'm seeing things I don't like. Blake's jaw tightened, though he kept his voice polite. Such as staff afraid to speak, overworked, underrespected. And I've heard talk about how you treat certain employees. His eyes darkened.
Gossip travels fast.
Truth travels faster, Ava replied. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. With all due respect, you don't understand what it takes to manage a place like this. These kids, they slack off if you're not firm. Firm isn't the same as cruel. He laughed. A short, dismissive sound. You built this place, Ava, but you're not in it anymore. I am. You want results? I get them. You start listening to every complaint from a dishwasher who can't handle discipline. This place will crumble. Discipline isn't intimidation. He leaned slightly closer, voice silky. Careful. You sound emotional. Ava's eyes went cold.
No, Blake.
I sound angry. He straightened, mask slipping for just a second. A flash of contempt behind the charm. Look, if there's an issue, we can discuss it like professionals. In private. Tomorrow. I'm discussing it now. He exhaled sharply through his nose. Fine. Let's not make a scene. Ava followed him to the office, closing the door behind her. The air was thick. No air conditioning, only the faint buzz of a dying fluorescent light. On the desk were files, invoices, a bottle of whiskey, and a single framed photo of Blake shaking hands with a city councilman. He sat, folding his hands. You're making a mistake listening to rumors. Trey's got issues. He's emotional, lazy, and terrified of you, Ava interrupted. Blake scoffed. Terrified? Of me? Please. You know how these new hires are. Always playing victim when you hold them accountable. Ava took a step closer. When did accountability start meaning humiliation? When did it mean keeping someone hours after closing just to remind them who's boss? Blake smirked faintly. You've been talking to someone. Let me guess. Shayla? She's had it out for me since I didn't promote her. This isn't about her. He leaned back, smirk widening. Then what's it about? You maybe? Coming back here to play savior for the little people? Ava's hand clenched at her side. It's about respect. The one thing I built this place on. The thing you clearly don't understand. His voice dropped to a whisper. You're out of touch, Ava. You don't know what goes on anymore. You think your name still means something here. But these people, they respect me. Something shifted in Ava then. A deep, simmering fury turning into ice. You're right, she said softly. They respect you, but they don't trust you. And that's about to change. She turned and left before he could respond. Outside, the rain had started again, tapping softly on the windows. Trey was still cleaning, eyes flicking toward her. She gave him a small nod. It's going to be okay, she said quietly. Go home. I'll take care of the rest. He hesitated, then whispered, Be careful. He don't lose easy. I don't either, Ava said. The next morning, Ava arrived early, long before the lunch prep began. She'd barely slept. The thunderstorm that had rolled through the night mirrored her thoughts. Loud, relentless, impossible to ignore. She spent the morning digging through employee reports, texts, and shift logs. The more she read, the clearer it became. Patterns of retaliation, sudden schedule cuts, selective write-ups. Blake had been careful but not careful enough. When Marissa arrived around 10, Ava was waiting at her desk. The assistant manager froze. Ms. Brooks, I didn't know you'd be in. Ava smiled gently. I'm sure you didn't. Have a seat. Marissa sat, clutching her clipboard like a shield. I know Blake's been using you to handle staffing, Ava began. I also know you've seen what he's been doing. Marissa's lips parted, but no words came out. Ava leaned forward. You're not in trouble, but I need the truth. Tears welled in Marissa's eyes. He said he'd ruin me if I talked. Said I'd never work in this city again. Ava's tone softened. He's not as powerful as he thinks. Marissa wiped her eyes. He makes people feel small, especially the men. Trey's the worst. He doesn't touch him, but he says things, cruel things, makes him feel like nothing. Then he turns around and plays hero in front of the investors. Does he ever do this in writing? Marissa shook her head. No. But I recorded something once. A few weeks ago. Ava's pulse jumped. Do you still have it? Marissa nodded slowly. It's on my phone. Can I hear it? Marissa hesitated, then unlocked her phone and pressed play. Blake's voice filled the room. Sharp, venomous. You think you're special 'cause she hired you? You're nothing but charity, boy. You're here 'cause I let you be here. You forget that. I'll make sure no kitchen in this city hires you again. Then Trey's voice, quiet, trembling, Yes, sir, followed by Blake's low laugh. Good. Now smile for the customers. Don't want them thinking we treat the help bad. Ava's hands shook with rage. When the recording ended, silence hung heavy. Send that to me, Ava said quietly. Then go home. Take a few days off. You'll still be paid. Marissa blinked. Are you going to fire him? Ava's eyes hardened. Not yet. I'm going to expose him. Marissa nodded, tears still falling. Thank you. When she left, Ava leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. For the first time in a long time, she felt the old fire. The same fire that got her through every insult, every kitchen door slammed in her face. But she also knew this wouldn't end quietly. Blake would fight back. And when he did, she'd be ready. The day of reckoning came 2 nights later. Lure's main dining room glittered under the glow of chandeliers, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the quiet hum of money. Tonight was special, an investor dinner. The city's food critics, financiers, and journalists sat at tables dressed in white linen, savoring each course of the new seasonal menu. Blake was in his element. His charm returned in full force. Crisp suit, confident grin, handshake after handshake. He played the part flawlessly, weaving between tables with a glass of wine in hand, speaking the language of business and ambition. At the far end of the room, unseen but not unnoticed, Ava Brooks stood near the open kitchen window, watching. Her nerves were steady. The air buzzed with electricity. Every second tonight mattered. She'd spent the last 48 hours quietly preparing. HR had received the recording and accompanying employee statements. The board had been notified. She'd even arranged for 2 members of the press to attend under the guise of reviewing the restaurant. But Blake didn't know any of that yet. He only knew that his boss was back in town, smiling just enough to keep him off balance. When the final entree was served, Ava stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice carrying easily through the room, "thank you for being here tonight. Lure has always been about more than food. It's about people, the ones who build it night after night, dish after dish. Without them, none of this would exist." The room quieted. Blake, sensing something, moved closer to her side, that professional smile freezing at the edges. "I've been away for a while," Ava continued, "and in that time, I've learned a hard truth. Success can hide decay. Polished surfaces can mask rot underneath. Tonight, I want to show you what happens when someone forgets that respect is the foundation of excellence." Blake laughed lightly, trying to defuse the tension. "Ava, maybe this isn't the time for—" She held up a hand. "It's exactly the time." From the back of the room, a projector flickered to life, illuminating the wall behind them. The screen showed security footage, ordinary enough at first. Employees working, cleaning, moving about. But then came sound, the recording Marissa had given her. Blake's voice filled the space. Cruel, arrogant, unmistakable. "You think you're special 'cause she hired you? You're nothing but charity, boy." The room froze. The color drained from Blake's face. The footage shifted, timestamps, shift rosters, screenshots of written complaints buried in HR inboxes, all tied to his name. Gasps rippled across the room. He stammered, This is out of context. Someone edited." "No one edited anything," Ava said calmly. "These are your words, your actions, the way you've treated the people who trusted you to lead them." He turned on her, anger breaking through his facade. "You can't do this. You think these people care about your kitchen staff? They care about results, about profit." Ava smiled, but it was cold. "You're right, they do care about results, which is why they'll be happy to hear that you're officially suspended, pending termination. Effective immediately." The room erupted, whispers, murmurs, shifting chairs. 2 board members stood up at once, nodding at Ava. It was over. Blake's eyes blazed. "You set me up." "No," Ava said softly. "You set yourself up. I just turned on the lights." He took a step toward her, fury in every line of his face, but security was already there, 2 large men in black stepping in between them. As they escorted him out, his voice echoed behind him. "You'll regret this. You think they'll keep you after this circus? You're finished, Ava." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. When the door slammed shut, the room was silent for a beat. Then, slowly, applause began. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Kendra clapped first, then Shayla, then Trey, standing near the kitchen door, hands trembling but eyes shining with relief. Ava exhaled deeply, the weight of months, maybe years, finally leaving her chest. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the restaurant windows like a quiet blessing. Ava sat with Trey and Shayla at a corner booth, steaming mugs of coffee between them. Trey still looked uncertain. I don't know what to say. Nobody's ever stood up for me like that. Ava smiled gently. You don't owe me anything. You deserved to be treated with respect. That's not a favor. That's the bare minimum. He nodded, eyes wet. I was gonna quit. Thought I wasn't cut out for this. Don't quit, she said. Stay. Help me rebuild this place the right way. He looked up, surprised. You mean that? Completely. Shayla grinned, nudging him. Told you she was different. Ava chuckled softly. Difference, one word for it. For the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't in years, hope. Later that afternoon, she called an all-staff meeting. Everyone gathered in the dining room. Cooks, dishwashers, servers, bartenders. The energy was cautious but curious. Ava stood in front of them, no podium, no formality. I owe you all an apology, she began. Somewhere along the way, I let this place run on autopilot. I thought good numbers meant a healthy team. I was wrong. The room was quiet, all eyes on her. I built Lure because I wanted it to be different. Because I know what it's like to be screamed at, belittled, told you don't matter. I swore no one who worked for me would ever feel that again. And yet, it happened under my watch. A few heads nodded, eyes softening. That ends today. We start over. Together. No more silence. No more fear. If something feels wrong, I want to hear it. Not through whispers, but through truth. Kendra raised her hand. Does that mean we can actually take breaks again? Laughter rippled through the crowd. Ava smiled. Yes, that too. When the meeting ended, people lingered. Some hugged her. Some just smiled for the first time in months. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the French Quarter in gold and violet, Ava stepped outside to breathe. The city pulsed as it always had. Music spilling from every doorway, life layered upon life. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was running from something. She felt steady, grounded. She turned as Trey stepped out beside her. Beautiful night, he said. It is. He hesitated, then asked quietly, You ever think about why you do all this? The food, the people, the pressure. Ava thought for a moment, then said, Because food is truth. You can fake a lot of things, money, power, charm, but you can't fake what comes from your hands. The kitchen doesn't lie. And maybe that's why I came back. To remember what truth tastes like. He nodded slowly. Guess we all need that reminder sometimes. She smiled. We do. But the world rarely stays quiet for long. A week later, as things began to stabilize, Ava received a letter at her office. No return address. Just her name, typed in all caps. Inside was a single photo. Blake, standing in front of another restaurant across town, shaking hands with a new investor. On the back, a note in his handwriting. You can't erase me. See you soon. Ava stared at it for a long time. Then she smiled. Not with fear, but with resolve. Because now she knew exactly who she was dealing with. And if he ever tried to rise again, she'd be ready. Not as the silent observer, but as the force he should have never underestimated. She tucked the photo into her drawer, locked it, and returned to the kitchen, where laughter and music had already returned. As she moved among her staff, tasting sauces, giving notes, wiping sweat from her brow, the hum of the stoves felt like a heartbeat. Steady, alive, unbreakable. Lure was hers again, and for the first time in a long time, it truly shone.